Denver and the Lakers. LeBron was awesome. LeBron threw a great 6 innings, Russillo. That might be who he is at this point in time as a playoff guy because he's 39 years old. He's been in the league 21 years. I don't know if he can do that for 2.5 hours against a team as good as Denver. That's not my takeaway. What was your takeaway?
That they had an epic Anthony Davis game. He played 45 minutes. I don't know if that's past the line of like, are you getting the best minutes of him? I know it's easy to point to after they lose, but they've lost 9 straight against this team. Okay. So I don't know if I think the branding of the Lakers makes people think that they're in this series way more than evidence would tell us that they are.
Yeah, like the line dropped. It ended up at like plus 330 by the time the series started. It was like, Jesus, who's betting the Lakers? Think they're going to beat Denver? Somebody going to get injured? Nobody's beating Denver. Um, I thought that was one of the best games I've ever seen him play. And I thought Jokic was also awesome. And that was probably my second favorite game of the weekend. I thought those guys absolutely went at it at the highest possible level of basketball. And I was really impressed by Davis because Jokic, he's one of the best offensive players in the history of the league. And Davis went toe to toe with them. I didn't think other than LeBron, I didn't think anyone in his team played well. So it was impressive. My takeaway, D'Angelo Russell sucked in this game and did not resemble regular season D'Angelo Russell. And it got me thinking, I was like, have I ever seen D'Angelo Russell play a good playoff game? And I went back, he's played 28 playoff games. He's averaging 14 and 5, 39% shooting, 32% from three, 10.8 PER.
That's low.
Win shares minus 0.2. So I looked up, I'm like, those numbers are pretty bad. I'm gonna look this up. How many guys post merger in the playoffs? 13 plus points per game, 39% or worse field goal, 30 plus minutes a game, and they played 27 plus games. How many guys have that profile? There's only 5. D'Angelo Russell, Ron Artest, Jamal Mashburn, Mookie
Easy.
Blaylock, and Vernon Maxwell. And that's it in the last almost 50 years of the league. So my point is D'Angelo Russell, maybe this is why you're in trade rumors for December and January. He played really well this season, but he just has, for whatever reason, has not been able to play well in the playoffs. And they're not going to beat Denver once if he can't play well.
I can't believe he sustained it as well as he did throughout the regular season. You brought up the trade deadline theory. It may be 100% true. And, at one point I was like, okay, cool. He had a good month. I was like, wow, he had a really good second month. I was like, all right, I guess he's just not going to miss any shots anymore. But there's something about his pace that when it's working, it's like, oh, he's so in control, plays with this great pace. But sometimes that pace is so slow. It's a little bit like Dallas' start today. But there are plays, they put the 2 guys at the elbows, and it's up to him to kind of figure out which side he wants to go to. It may be predetermined anyway, but I think a lot of times a player like him would have the freedom to kind of figure out what he wants. And he doesn't even really pick like what he wants to attack. And, it's one thing to miss a bunch of shots, but on the other end, it's Denver. It's the playoffs. Like you have to stay glued to your guy defensively. And he comes off screens like it's the first quarter of a game in October. So I obviously everybody knows that I'm not the biggest fan, but I was shocked that he was able to sustain it this long. But this is somebody against Denver last year that averaged 6 a game. His shooting splits were 32 and 13%.
Yeah.
He got benched in game 4. So look, it's game 1. I think the alarming part of this, and it's something that you've brought up before, is you're getting these full seasons from Davis and LeBron. Okay, like uninterrupted full seasons from Davis, who's had his stuff, and LeBron, who usually misses time. And when you put those numbers together, the other thing that I brought up with New Orleans is like the top 2 guys. If you look at the point differential with your top 2 guys on the team, it usually is a pretty sturdy number. And for the Lakers, even with that, it just hasn't really been strong enough with those 2 guys on the plus minus side of things in comparison to the other 2 best players for other teams. And they start with Ryen Jokic. People seem to think that solves, like Jokic, first of all, is unsolvable, which we all know, but he was 8 and 9 against him. So then what are you going to do? You're going to ask LeBron to defend him because it looked pretty good a couple times because he's just smarter about Like, you can't do that to LeBron. And now you're asking Davis to carry you with 30 and 15, but then also play Jokic for the full 38, 40 minutes, and he's going to be out there. It was a very Denver game. Like, you're going to think you're in this at some point. And even though Murray didn't shoot it well, he had a stretch of kind of like we were talking about with Paul George. There was like a 3-shot barrage from Murray that was huge. And then they start running away from him. And then Jokic is just playing with you, knowing that he's in total control. I mean, it's got to be the most horrifying scenario to be in for an opponent, especially to be at their place in a close game, thinking you have a chance to pull it off.
And Aaron Gordon was really good in that game too. LeBron in the fourth quarter, we've seen him do this before, and I don't know if he was exhausted or if he was just mentally like, we can't beat these guys, but it was like you could see the little Terminator light started flickering for him, where it was just like you could see the hope kind of drain from his body. It was interesting.
So he came in at 9:08, but it was 96-81, right? Comes back into the fourth quarter. He immediately attacks, gets the free throws. He didn't take another shot. And I'm not even talking about like the field goal attempt log.
He was passing. I didn't know what he was doing. I didn't really fully understand it.
Didn't take another shot until 120 left. Because I remember watching it, and then I went back to go like, wait, he wasn't like, he just was out. And I don't know if that's because it was the first game or because he was tired, or at that point the score was pretty lopsided. So maybe he just thought, I don't really have it.
Saving it for the second game.
Yeah.
You said something earlier. It clicked the light bulb for me. You said everyone knows I'm not the biggest fan. I think that's the title for your book. Each chapter is about somebody. Everyone knows you're not the biggest fan. And it's like chapter 3, D'Angelo Russell. Who else is in that book? There's been some classics over the years.
Yeah, look,
Gary Bettman, does he get a chapter?
I don't think he's on the radar enough for me to do.
Maybe he's in the epilogue.
Maybe if there's a paperback edition, like including Gary Bettman chapter. But I don't really have any history with Gary Bettman, so that wouldn't.
Derek Carr? Is Derek Carr get a chapter?
No, I like Derek Carr.
Oh, you do?
Well, I just thought it was. I thought it was funny.
Oh, Boogie Cousins. Yeah, that's a good one.
What
Cerruti said Boogie Cousins. What quarterback? There's no quarterback you're not the biggest fan of? Kirk Cousins?
I actually liked him a little bit more this year, but I'd say over the long haul, I feel pretty good about my Cousins position. I always think it's kind of funny when somebody will be like, "Oh, that's where your head's at." If I'm critical of somebody, and it's like, well, if I was what you thought I was, wouldn't like Kirk Cousins be my favorite athlete of all time?
Yeah.
So
it's a good zag. Kirk Cousins, great zag.
Like Westbrook, when Westbrook got into it with Washington today, I'll admit I had a little like Westbrook moment at home where he grabs Washington's arm. That was 100% on Westbrook. And then Westbrook like grabs his arms down, like, what are you doing to me? And then but to your point, he's playing to the crowd. He's finding a way to, like, if Westbrook's not in charge of anything, like say the ball or possessions or the paperwork on your lease, if you were roommates in college, I just think Westbrook would be a roommate where he'd break furniture right in front of you. And you'd be like, dude, that's my dad's table. Like you'd be like, no, I didn't. And when you're running an offense for 40 minutes, I think that can be challenging. But in this role, and you were in the building, I think it's serving everybody well with this. So yeah, I got to think of some more chapters. I don't think I want to write that book. In your pod. Yeah,
be a fun one. Maybe a quickie book. Like
feels a little negative. Feels a little negative.
Think too negative? Well, maybe you could zag. I don't know. Mike can write a book. I feel like you can pump one out.
Or when Kornheiser had one that just said, "I'm back for the cash."
Yeah, I'm back for more cash. I have that book.